Everybody, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, gentlemen and lady.
Right. Your first name is Roger.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
And how do we pronounce your surname?
It's Telemachus.
Telemachus. I was right the first time. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Mr. Telemachus, we're going to go through your affidavit and what have you, but we need to let you assure us that what you are going to tell us is the truth. And so there will be an administration of either the oath or an affirmation by Advocate Ngele. And then Mr. July will take you through your affidavit. Advocate Ngele.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Roger.
Hi, ma'am. Are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yes. Are you going to take an oath or an affirmation?
I'm going to take the oath.
Okay. Mr. Roger Telemachus, do you swear that the evidence you're going to give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If that is so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you very much. You've now been sworn in as a participant in the SJN hearings.
Mr. July.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Mr. Telemachus.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, you prepared an affidavit, right?
Correct.
And that affidavit, is that what you are confirming, that what you are going to say here is the truth and nothing else but the truth?
That's correct, sir.
Yes. In your affidavit, you state that you played professional cricket for 16 years.
Correct.
And during that period, you also represented South Africa.
Correct, sir.
And you also talk to racial discrimination and prejudices in your affidavit. You also,
correct.
The last thing that you are talking about is marginalization as a coach.
Yes.
Yes. So you'll talk to the details of that. You don't have to read the affidavit, but when necessary, you can make reference to the affidavit.
Yes, sir.
Right. The floor is yours.
Okay, just a small introduction. As my affidavit says there, I grew up in Stellenbosch where I learned my cricket. And also I played the game for a long time, 16 years. But I think it all started when my father took me to Ombudsman Henry and, just to show him that I can play the game and I really want to become a professional cricketer. And I think, a long story short, Ombudsman Henry really showed me the ropes about how to become a cricketer. He took me under his wings. He showed me how to train. He showed me how to bowl. And my background is basically bowling. I played for various clubs in Stellenbosch, with, my brothers and their friends. And I think and that is where I learned how to play the game, with the older guys. And I think that is where I've learned from others, especially the older generation, I then, made the transition to go play for a club called Newton's Cricket Club, and then for Stellenbosch University in the Boland. I then there really understand what is cricket all about, with the leadership at OMA and the coach at the university. And from there, everything and basically the puzzle just fall into place. You know, I eventually made my first-class debut in 1993, where I played for Poland. And from 1998 to 2006, I represented Western Province. But at the same time, I, made my debut in 1998 for South Africa for the Proteas. And this is where, I started to become a really professional cricketer, and from 1996, when franchise cricket was introduced until 2009, I played for the Eagles, now the Knights, and they from Bloemfontein. And I finished off my career with the Cobras in 2009. And obviously in 2007, we'll get there to the World Cup, as I stated in my affidavit there. 2007, I went to the 2007 World Cup in the Caribbean. And I think after my career in 2009, I took up coaching. My first stint was I took over from the guy who really showed me how to become a professional cricketer, Omar Hendry. I took over from him as the coach at Stellenbosch University. And then I had a little stint with Boland Cricket with the academy for a few months, and I eventually got the job in KZN Cricket with KZN Coastal, where I coached for 7 years. And with restructuring of cricket in South Africa, I am currently without a job because of restructuring. So that is basically a little introduction about myself and where I started, etc., etc.
Yep, you can proceed.
And I think the reason why I'm here today is just because of the unfairness or the things that happened to me in cricket. People treated me unfairly, etc. A few racist things that I saw with my own eyes. One incident that happened in the first-class game, and that is many moons ago, where one black player was painted with the paint that we used to paint the pitch with in his face. And as you can see in my affidavit, I approached the coach who did it. And I confronted him to ask him why he did it. And he just basically told me he didn't clean his boots. But I also challenged that coach to tell him that I didn't see any other white players with dirty boots that you could have painted their faces too. And he couldn't answer me, and myself, Paul Adams was there as well. We basically told this player to go wash his face, but he was also scared. He couldn't stood up to the coach, and he eventually went into the change room. And I'm not clear if he washed his face afterwards.
Yes, you can go to your experience now as a Protea World Cup squad.
Yeah, in 2000, I think in 2007, just before we left the shores of South Africa, I was picked to in that squad. I think it was 15-man squad to go represent South Africa in the 2007 World Cup. I can clearly remember what was the reason why I was picked. It was told to me by the coach, who was Mickey Arthur, that the conditions will suit me. So that's the reason why I was picked. And as the tournament went on, and I can tell you it was a 2-month World Cup, because you had to play a lot of games before you get into the Super Sixes, and from there you get a knockout stage. Whatever they told me on that trip, whether it was to do your fitness, because the guys who's not playing or who's not taking part in games have to do your daily fitness, your runs, your gym, your bowling, your extra bowling, and I did all those things. Whenever the coach or the coaching staff spoke to me about these things, I did it. Because as a professional cricketer, you always need to be ready when they call on you. But I'll get there. And eventually, South Africa did well in that World Cup, I can recall. And when we qualified, and I mentioned in my affidavit, when we qualified for the Super Sixes, there were still 2 games left before we started those Super Sixes, and we already qualified for the Super Sixes. I approached the coach, Mickey Arthur, and the captain, Graham Smith, just to ask them, listen, will I get the opportunity to have a go at least in one of these 2 games that is still left before we start the Super Sixes? And it was clearly said to me that no, they've got momentum, they're not going to change the team, etc., etc. But again, yes, I've challenged them in terms of, look here, this is now opportunity for the guys who's not playing to give them a run, to keep them going on the cricket field and keep them, sharp and prepared for the next games. As I mentioned earlier, you never know what can happen in a tournament like that. A lot of injuries can take place, so you need to be ready. They basically told me that, look here, we're not going to play you, we're not going to play the others, we're going to stick with our winning team at the moment. And I do understand that. But for me, those 2 games that is dead rubber games. You can't afford to give the guys an opportunity who hasn't played in the tournament a go, or at least one of those 2 games. And as I mentioned, they just refused to give me an opportunity to play in those games. Look here, from there, I still, respected them when they asked me to come and, do my fitness and do the extra bowling in the nets. I continue with that. But eventually, I got a bit sick with the coach and the captain. And I basically told them before I went to the team manager to say, listen, I'm prepared to go home. I can see I'm not welcome here. I'm unhappy. I already told my family that I'm coming home. I was prepared to pay my own ticket home. And the late Gulam Raja was the manager at that time, basically told me, I can't. And I know why he said I can't, because if I had to leave, Cricket South Africa would have been in big trouble. Just to see one of the players arrive back in South Africa by himself and on his own cost, that would have been a disaster. We left it there, and eventually when the tournament, finished and we lost in the semi-final. But before I get to the semi-final, I just want to tell the story. And, I think there's one of the players in the semi-final. Before we played the semi-final, the coach approached me to say, listen, one of our senior, and he mentioned senior fast bowlers, he's got an injury. You are going to play. You are going to play. You look here. I prepared myself, and this was a week before. And this is how it works. When you play a game, you basically, you get info who the team is. We try to break them down, analyze them, set game plans together for our bowling attack, etc. And this was a week before, as I mentioned. And I think if my memory serves me correct, I think a day before, after I was told a week before that I will play in the semi-final, a day before, one of our fast bowlers broke down, and I was told, listen here, you're still playing, but the morning, and this is where it comes in, the morning of, I got it wrong, the day before, I was told a week before, the day before the game, the semi-final, I was called in by the coach to say, listen here, sorry guy, you're not playing anymore. Look, that broke my heart. I asked him why, and he told me, listen here, they got word they received the email from CSA that Makaya and TD has to play in the semi-final. All right. And to be honest, I almost got physical with the coach, etc. And I left it there and I continued my work. But for me, the question is, why couldn't Makaya and Tini and Roger Telemachus play together in the semi-final? That was my question to them. And as I mentioned earlier, I left it there. I left the room, and until today, I never got answers. I asked the convener of selectors then what happened there. He couldn't give me answers. Until today, I never received answers. So look, I left it there, and I continue my career after we got back from the World Cup. And look, I still played a season or two with the Cobras, and then obviously as I mentioned earlier, I took up coaching afterwards, and I started to coach. So until today, I never received any answers about that incident.
Before to coaching, let's deal with the issue, these instances that you are mentioning now of discrimination. The first that you mentioned is this player who happened to be a black player who was painted with a white paint on his face. You say Paul Adams was also there. How did you guys perceive that when it happened?
Look, yeah, as I mentioned, I think it was uncalled for me and for Mr. Adams, because I think Mr. Adams was the one who approached me to say, listen, yeah, your personality is you're probably the guy who can confront people. It was embarrassing, I think. I think it was racist. I think because there was a lot of guys in the opposition team, including white players, whose boots were dirty. Why didn't the coach do it to them? Why did he have to pick on the black player? And as I said and earlier, that I confronted the coach, and the coach said, listen here, this is part of my rules. If your boots are not clean or your bag is not packed properly, this is what will happen to you. Look here, that is his rules. I didn't confront him about his stupid rules, but it was uncalled for to paint someone's face with the white paint.
Then the issue about the 2 games that were left, you have already won the other games, so the other 2 games was just playing, and you were not.
Yeah.
You were not played.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we until from the beginning, until before those 2 games, I never, well, I understood that the team was doing well, but for me and for the rest of the guys who were sitting on the side, it was a great opportunity. As I said, it was a great opportunity for those Oaks and for myself to at least get a game out of the 2. Because we already qualified, it was a dead rubber 2 games that is going to take place. So there was no excuse from my point of view not to play me in those 2 games. But they persisted to keep the same team. I mean, the coach and the captain in a room told me this. We're keeping the same team. And the reasons is purely and straightforward what I've heard and what they told me. They are picking up momentum. They are in momentum, so they're not going to change the team, and they're going to continue playing the same team.
Excuse me, Roger. Can you explain this thing about momentum? Where does momentum come into?
Okay, momentum is when you're winning all the time. You're winning all the time. It's like a wheel running, like a car running, your car's running. You're doing the same things over and over the right way.
Okay. Now,
this failure to play you, even when the last 2 games, were not that important. How do you? I'm saying the failure to play you on the 2 games that you did not need, desperately in need of the 2 games because you have already won. So the failure, how do you relate that to transformation?
Look, for me, and I'm going to tell you a story. I think, firstly, to pick me for the national team, that already tells me I'm good enough to play. That alone tells me I'm good enough to play. And in that year, and in my career, and you can look at it, you look at my stats, I was good enough to play for South Africa. But not that. I played for South Africa before the World Cup too. I played in one-day internationals before the World Cup too. And I think they were scared. They were scared that I'm going to take someone's place in that World Cup, because there was a lot of guys, there was a lot of bowlers who didn't perform at their best. And I think they were scared because they know what I can do, and they were scared I'm going to keep that place for the rest of the World Cup.
They say to you, that is now both the coach and the captain, they are not going to change the team. Did they give reasons other than to say we just want to maintain the momentum?
No, as I mentioned earlier.
Because as I understand it, the series had been won already, even if assuming that they were afraid that getting you into the team would cause the team to lose that particular match or that particular test. You had already won the series as I understand it. And the whole reason that you have reserves or people more than the required 11 players in a team is that everybody who has been selected to be in the team must be given a chance. Otherwise, why take anybody to the West Indies if they are just going to be parcels and bring drinks to other players and all of those things? I'm trying to understand the logic of it and whether you also understood the logic of people saying, we want to keep the momentum. Do you think that they were wanting to go for a whitewash, perhaps? That, that was the reason?
I think, and I stick to my reason, I think they had no leg to stand on because, you have to give someone an opportunity when there is almost like, as I mentioned, dead rubber games. I mean, these two games were the perfect opportunity. Again, I can't stress it enough. Perfect opportunity for people who hasn't played in the World Cup to give them opportunity to play. Firstly, because it's an opportunity for them. Yes, I do understand. That is our main team. That is the guys that we're looking to play in the semi-final or the final, etc. But these two games were the perfect opportunity to let the guys play who hasn't played a game in the World Cup. All right? And there were no reasons for me. No one told me why I'm not playing. The only thing that I was told, we will keep the same team. And so I asked them, who's we? The selectors, the captain, the coach, because they are the guys who are calling the shots. All right? So I left it there. As I said, I was upset. I left it there, and I continue what was asked for me to do on a World Cup for the rest of the tournament. And I did my fitness, I did my extra bowling, I did everything they asked me to.
You also state that not only were you deprived an opportunity to play, but you were deprived an opportunity to earn an income, because during your time, there was no match fee. If you don't play, there's no match fee at all.
Yeah, that is correct, sir. If you don't play in these games, and I'm sure that happens in today's cricket as well. If you don't play, you can't earn the match fee you play. And yes, I think it's a good question, because every time you play the World Cup, you get a match fee. And I lost a lot of income for all those games I missed. Not just the World Cup, but all the games that I was supposed to play, or I lost on all. I didn't receive any income. And as Mr. Pankiso mentioned yesterday as well, if you don't play, you don't earn money, because you get a retainer when it comes to a match fee. We all were contracted, but you're still missing out on game fees, etc.
You also mention of the Big Five. You say these Big Five were in control of Proteas during the World Cup. You don't have to mention who the Big Fives were, but when you say they were in control of the World Cup, what do you mean?
Sorry, and I think that this is where the big five started. They control selection, they control everything when it comes to the big five, and that is where this word basically started off in the 2007 World Cup. I saw it with my own eyes, and I confronted all of them. I wanted to become physical with them because I know what I was talking about, you know. So this is where the name, the Big Five, started. This is where, you know, we basically gave the name to these players, the Big Five, because they ran selection, they ran everything, you know, basically everything at the World Cup, you know. So I can't stress it enough. This is where the word Big Five started.
This Big Five, is it a group of white players, a group of black players, or a group of mixed black and white players?
This was a group of white players.
So what effect then that had to you when you were confronting them?
Excuse me, sir, I didn't get you.
What effect that had to you? When you were confronting them, you were confronting them because you felt that you were excluded, because you are not part of the Big Five, or you don't look like them?
Well, for me, I think, again, you know, I never, you know, when I confronted them with all my issues at the 2007 World Cup, again, they couldn't give me answers because I was straight in their faces and I told them what I think, what they are busy doing. And, you know, I didn't get answers you know, until today, even when we returned back from South Africa, from the West Indies. And I went on the various radio stations, you know, and they all asked me the same question. Did you get answers? I never got answers. You know, they refused, or they were hiding all these, you know, secrets they had on that particular 2007 World Cup.
Now, you are told that you can't play with Makayantini because there were instructions from the CSA, which CSA got from a political party, that Makayantini must play. Were the instructions from that political party that Makayantini must play and you must be removed, or it was just a demand that Makayantini must play?
I think it was a demand that Makayantini must play. I'll tell you the story from the beginning. I mentioned earlier that a week before the semi-final, I was told that I will definitely play in the semi-final. And I asked the coach, what is the reason? He says, one of our fast bowlers has an eagle, all right? And he says, listen, you definitely play it. But before that, Makayantini was out of form, and he hasn't played until the semi-final, all right? And the day before the semi-final, and apparently they got a email from CSA that the ANC are putting pressure on them because there's not a black African cricketer in the team. So that is the reason why the coach came up to me and said, listen, you're sorry, but this is the story. Unfortunately, you can't play. This is the reason. He showed me the mail, and Makaya has to play. But my challenge to them was, why can't Roger Telemachus and Makaya and T not playing together in the semi-final? That was my challenge to the coach. Yet again, no answers, nothing happened. I was left out And even I called my family to say, listen, eventually I'm going to play. Watch out for me. I'm definitely playing. And the morning of the semi-final, or the day before the semi-final, I was told, listen, you can't play anymore. This is the reasons. Makaya has to play. Look, you gentlemen, I almost got physical with that coach, and luckily the assistant coach had to stop me. And in all honesty, I was furious. I was, I was hurt, and again, I left it there, and I just left the room.
Now, if the two of you, that is Makaya and yourself, it would have been, correct me if I'm wrong, it would have been out of a squad of 11 players.
Excuse me, sir.
It would have been the two of you in a squad of 11 players, wouldn't it be?
Yes.
The remainder would have been white players, is it?
The remainder would have been more than more than two black players.
Yes, what I'm saying, you would have been the only two black players in a squad of 11 for that match.
For that game was only Herschel Gibbs, and I think it was only, I can't, if my memory serves me correct,
yes.
I think the only black player, POC player of color was Herschel Gibbs before, yes. If my memory serves me correct.
Yes. But if I'm getting you well, there would have been no harm in playing you, Makayantini, and let's say Herschel Gibbs.
No, of course not. There would have been no harm because that is what we're there for. That is why we're good enough to play in the semi-final.
Yes.
Makaya and myself, we're good enough to play in the semi-final for the country.
Yes. Yes, we have. No. Okay.
So can you go now to the next topic, which is the marginalization in coaching?
Yes. Yes, in my affidavit, I think, I mentioned earlier that, there's a bit of unfairness when it comes to appointing coaches in our system, well, when I say system, in the whole country. But I've seen these things happen, with appointments at CSA, appointments at provincial level, appointments at in the old system, senior provincial, semi-pro, let's refer back to the appointment of the national coach. I mean, for me, that's unfair. And as you all know, and all cricketers out there, the guy was never, asked for an interview. He was appointed as, the national team by the director of cricket, Graham Smith. And especially with myself as well, I applied for a job at my old union. I couldn't get the job. I was asked to apply for another job in the same union. I was also not given that job. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's I've got no issues with Mark Boucher. I've got no issues with the guy who's been appointed as the KwaZulu-Natal inland coach. That is not a problem. I think I've got issues with people that, make these decisions. And I think it's unfair, Yes, we mentioned Boucher, we mentioned the guy who just got a job ahead of me at the union where I coached before. Yes, they got the jobs, but, explain to me the people that makes decisions in these areas. I know they need to take accountability or responsibility. And again, I can't stress enough, it's nothing to do with Michael Smith, who's got a job ahead of me at KZN in cricket. It's the people who makes the decision, the boards, your cricket committees, etc., etc.
Mr. Telemachus, I think you need to explain this. You are talking about Michael Smith, and Michael Smith is a coach who was appointed in the position of KZN that you are talking about now as a coach. And in your affidavit, you make it very clear that before the franchises were stopped, you were coaching there.
Yes, let me tell you so.
Yes.
I was the coach of KZN Coastal. So you got KZN Coastal, you got the franchise, then you've got almost like your B team, KZN Coastal. Then you also go to Maritzburg, where you got KZN Inland, which falls under one union. All right. So with restructuring, I was told, listen here, unfortunately, KZN Coastal is not going to exist anymore. All right. But let's leave that there. All right. So with the restructuring, I was told, listen here, you need to apply for the KZN Inland, because that becomes now a professional setup. All right. So with my long service and my success rate at KZN Coastal, which I won 3 trophies, I produced players, I produced international players, I've got a good record, to ask me to apply for that job, firstly, that tells me I've got a chance here. That keeps my hopes up. You, as my boss, told me, listen here, you have to apply for that job. I applied for the job. I went to the interview process, etc., etc. I was interviewed, question, answer. And eventually, Mr. Smith got the job. I then asked the CEO, look here, I understand, I'm not happy, but at least for what I've done for this union and for you and for your staff and for your players, at least then give me the assistant job at KZN Inland. That also didn't happen. All right. So that is my story. But also, if I, as a coach who has produced players, not just players, franchise players, international players, all right, not to give me at least an opportunity with the academy or wherever they can find me a job. For me, that's a slap in my face. All right? No one never, ever even approached me to say, listen here, because you've done so well, because you produce all these things, you've won 2 to 3 trophies, we'll make sure that you will stay with us and give you opportunity wherever it is in our system. No one said that. No one even approached me about that. For me, that is unfair.
I understand also your gripe with the appointment of Michael Smith is that he lacks qualifications that you have. Can you talk to that?
Yes, but my understanding, I don't think he's got a level 4. I think he's got a level 3. I've got a level 4. I'm more qualified than him. He hasn't been. And again, I'm not having a go at Michael Smith. I'm having a go at the system. Michael Smith hasn't ever coached since I've been in coaching in a professional setup. He comes from a school background where he was a coach. So for me, already that, it's not fair.
Is Michael Smith white?
Yes, sir, he's white.
When you asked if you did, why were you not appointed? What is the answer that is given to you?
Look, people are going to give you all sorts of reasons why you're not appointed as the England coach. I did phone the CEO, and the only thing he told me, listen here, Michael Smith brings something different. That's just the answer, bring something different to the table. I know that Michael Smith is involved as a batting consultant of one of the Pakistan teams, T20 tournaments there. So that is the only thing I can think of that, Michael Smith probably got to know the head of me, I can't recall that Michael Smith ever coached in a professional setup. I know that Michael Smith's background is school coaching. I think he was, director of cricket at a school down in PE.
Sorry. The KZN Inland Club, if you had been appointed as coach, what would be the majority, demographically speaking, what would have been the majority of the players that you would be in charge of?
I think that's a good question. I think,
and when the process went on, I think that whole most of the coastal team would have been contracted with the inland team, if you understand what I mean.
yeah.
Because before the process took place, I already told them, and I was asked, listen here, what do you think, Roger? Who are the best players that we can take from KwaZulu-Natal coastal to KwaZulu-Natal inland for their professional team? And I gave them all those names, because you have to ask the coach. He's the coach. He works with the players. He understands the brain of the players, So that would have been, what happened, and I gave them the names. Listen, you have to contract this guy or that guy, and so many guys for the new system.
And demographical, that's what I want to know. Would they be majority white, or would they be even between white, colored, Indian, and what have you?
It would have been a good balance, if that's your answer. It wouldn't have been more white or more black or POC players. Would have been a good balance of good players that I would have sent over to inland.
I know you state even in your affidavit that you have no issues with people who are being appointed to the positions, but you have an issue with the system how they get to be appointed there. Now let's talk about the appointment of Mr. Boucher. You did mention that no advert was placed for people to apply. If that advert was placed there, would you have applied? And if you would have applied, do you qualify to coach at that level?
Firstly, I definitely qualified for that position because I've got a level 4. A level 4 coaching certificate is the highest certificate as a coach in cricket. All right? Firstly, I would have qualified. Yes, I didn't qualify. Even if the ad comes out now, I won't qualify because I feel I still need to do more coaching before I can get to that level, if you know what I mean. All right? Yes, I mentioned, you know, he is the first coach in the history of South African cricket that received a 4-year contract. We don't know why. Who gave him that? Right? Who gave him that? What was the process? I know the guy didn't go for an interview. He was appointed. I know for a fact there was no interview process, nothing.
No advertisements position.
I don't think there was advertisements. I don't think so. I might speak under correction, but I don't think there was advertisement.
And you then go on and say, you mentioned that there's the longest ever contract for a Proteas coach in the history of CSA. You then go and say, in my opinion, to get a top coaching position, a coach needs to have the qualifications of a level 3 or 4 coaching certificate. I don't believe that Mr. Boucher possesses these coaching qualification levels.
Yes, I did say that. It's here in front of me. I don't think he's got even a level 3. I don't think he's got a level 3. Well, if he had to do it afterwards, I don't know about it. But at the time, he never had a level 3 or level 3 or level 4 coaching certificate. Right?
You had a level 4 at that time. You.
Who's this?
You.
Telemachus.
At that time, I had a level 4 certificate. Yes. And you must understand, when you play professional cricket, and this is a good point, when you play professional cricket, there is no time to do your coaching levels. Yes, maybe there is time, but you are so busy as an international cricketer to do your level 1, 2, 3, to 4. All right? But I can tell you this much. Mark Boucher never had, when he was appointed, a level 3 to a level 4 qualification.
Telemachus, I wanted to ask, yes, what is CSA's approach to, queries of this nature, regarding, the appointment of coaches? Is it something that CSA, intervenes with, or, what is their view on, or what was their view even at the time, on the appointment of Mark Boucher?
Look, it's not me. There's a lot of guys who ask questions about that appointment, Look, I can't give you an answer, There's so many different answers that came out of that appointment. Look, we all know that, the director of cricket and who is Mr. Smith and Mr. Boucher, played a lot of cricket together. You know, when I say he, Mr. Smith appointed him as the director of coaches, of the Proteas or the coach. But my issue is, again, we had a black coach before Mr. Boucher, Enoch Inkwe. What did he do wrong? Why couldn't he get a four-year contract? Why was he dismissed? Again, what did he do wrong? And I know Mr. Enoch Inkwe. He did very, very well with the Lions from Gauteng. That's why he got the job. And, you know, I'm not too sure if Mr. Inkwe was removed. I know he had a stint of interim coach. So my question is, why couldn't they give him a 4-year contract? That is my question. That's CSA.
And what is the general, how long would a normal contract be, a normal coaching contract be, if a 4-year contract is the longest contract?
Sorry, ma'am, you're talking about the longest contract for the national job?
Yes, the head coach.
I think you're breaking up, and I'm just going to answer that question. I think, I've got the longest contract.
In my knowledge, was a 3-year contract for a national coach. Right, that is my knowledge.
Okay. Mr. Telemachus, I also just want to go back to, you know, this issue of the Big Five, because it came out in Aaron Pangiso's testimony as well. And he stated that the Big Five in the Proteas, no one there could be dropped and they were untouchable. Would you agree that was the case?
Yes, ma'am, that's what I said.
You know, and again, that is where the name the Big Five started. You know, those oaks couldn't be dropped. They couldn't do anything wrong. And although they did something wrong, you know, some of those guys in the Big Five underperformed. Some of those Big Five, you know, guys, they just ran the show. They called the shots. I mean, they used to go to the coach and say, listen here, this is what we want. This is how we're going to play. All right? This is how we're going to pick the team. I know. I've been there. I've seen these things happen in front of my eyes.
Okay. You know how they formed themselves? Is it a matter of, you know, these are 5 players that became friends, or how did they come to form themselves?
Sorry, can you rephrase that? You're just breaking up. I don't know why the line's so bad. Sorry.
No problem. Now I'm just asking, how did the Big Five came to be? Like, how did they come to, or how did they form themselves? Yeah, to be the Big Five.
Look, they were all, you know, they were guys that, you know, they were good friends off the cricket field. They were good friends on the cricket field. They always hung. They always went out together. You know, they always, you know, they had their social lives together. Even when they weren't tours, I mean, they always did things together. You know, every day of their lives. You know, that is how they hook up, you know, that is how they discuss things, and, you know, even after the World Cup and still continue with the Big Five there. Mr. Pangiso played way after I played for South Africa, and he still remember what the Big Five did. So, yeah, that is my answer to you.
Do you have any? Yeah, it looks like those are the questions that we would like to have put to you. But before you go, is there anything that you yourself would like to ask from us, seeing that we find ourselves on this platform which has invited you to come and talk about your career in cricket and give us some measure of insight as to the role that racial discrimination, which was unfair, may have played in your cricketing career. So this is...
I think, you know, and firstly, the reasons or the reason why I agreed to, you know, speak to the public and speak to people about this is because, you know, what happened to all black cricketers in this country. I think we were unfairly treated. And yes, I'm going to say it, we lost a lot of money in the process too, you know, where the white players earned all the money. But for me, I just want, you know, fairness in the game, and especially with CSA, you know. They are the big boss, the mother body. They need to get cricket on track again for me, you know. Let's treat everybody fair, and I hope this project, you people sitting there, Mr. Chair, will play a vital role when it comes to your report at the end of you know, this hearings, that, you know, they will listen and understand why we as black cricketers or player of color, you know, speaking out, you know, about cricket in the country. And the other reason is, you know, I don't want, you know, things to happen to, you know, our kids, our grandkids, the same stories all over again. I think it's time to draw the line, and where CSA really needs to, you know, look into where we can improve and where can we be fair and make the right appointments when it comes to coaches and also the unions. You know, make sure the right boards are in place. You know, because I don't believe there are a lot of boards in the country. We have the right people. We don't have the ex-cricketers on cricket boards. We don't have enough. Because the reason why I say that is because if I come to a board as a cricket coach or a cricketer, and there's enough cricket administrators, the guys who played the game for a long, long time, I think they will understand what we talk about. All right. And I hope, you know, and again, I mentioned, let's get cricket on the right path again. Let's be honest with each other, you know, because it's for the future of this country. We used to be the best team in the world by a mile. I played in a game where, and it's called the 438 game in many years ago. And we played against, for me, probably one of the best teams in the world, Australia. And we beat them because we were the best team in the world. All right. So let's get cricket on a fair and straight and honest path again, so that we can continue producing the good cricketers in our country. You know, especially for those who are coming from the rural areas. That's all I want. You know, and I can't see it should happen to, you know, the future of our country, Mr. Chair.
You know, before I let you go, Mr. Telemachus, I've been trying to figure out what the CEO could have meant when he said that Mr. Michael Smith's appointment was because he brings, in quotes, more value and credentials to the table. And I'm battling with understanding what that was supposed to mean, but you probably have a view about what it meant to you when you were told that.
You can't, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry. If someone don't or haven't even coached at professional level, who doesn't have, yes, he understands cricket. Michael Smith understands cricket. But how is it possible, Mr. Chair, that a guy who hasn't coached in the system of CSA get a job in CSA or in the system of CSA? That is my problem.
So in other,
Are you saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are unable to find what it is that you are told he will be bringing more value? You can't get your head around what is the value, let alone the more value, and what are the credentials, let alone the more credentials that Mr. Michael Smith was bringing. Is that what you are battling with?
If someone tells me
He'll bring more value, it can mean a lot of things. All right? It can mean a lot of things. If someone tells me he'll bring a lot of value, it can mean a lot of things. Roger Telemachus can also bring a lot of value to the table, because I've been in the system for 10 years as a coach, as a professional coach. That is my answer to you.
I mean, those are the credentials too. You have got certificates and you have experience. Is that what I'm saying? In coaching.
I've got the highest qualification in as a coach, Mr. Chair. You know, again, I mentioned it earlier. I produced cricketers. My winning ratio was good. You know, what else must I still do to prove people wrong that, you know, I deserve a job in cricket? All right. Look here again, and I'm going to. It is not Michael. It's Michael Smith, Boucher. It's not their fault. It's the people at the top who make the wrong decisions. That is the problem. And I can tell you, whether they know each other, is it because they're having drinks together, they go out for parties? I'm not sure. But the people in the boardroom, at the end of the day, they make decisions.
Well,
Sorry, may I just ask? Before we go, sorry, Mr. Telemachus, we just want to know the coach that painted the black cricketer's face white. Were there any other, I'll say, shocking incidents by this particular coach, other than what you've mentioned?
Well, okay, there wasn't other instances, but this specific this coach, right? This coach, he used to do it with all the non-white players, and I can tell you why. When players used to come back from him, they used to come and complain with me as a coach, or to other coaches as well, how he treated them. Right? So it's not just me. I mean, there's all other coaches who knows about the story of this particular coach. Right? So look here, it was embarrassing, and sometimes he will just abuse black cricketers or player of color, etc.
Was it of any significance to you that the color of the paint was white, or it's just the humiliation
No,
of painting a person?
Mr. Chair, I don't think the paint is always white on the cricket field. So he had to use that paint to paint the player's face white. As I said, I mean, it could have been it could have been a white player, but he never had a go at them.
Or it could have been a black paint.
Excuse me?
It could have been a black paint.
Well, I'm not going to answer there. There's no black paint on a cricket field. There's always white paint on a cricket field.
I see. Well, Mr. Telemachus, thank you very much. We can't make promises, but we are very much well aware of the expectations of people like you who have taken the time and the trouble to concentrate their minds on what has been their experiences in the past in this sporting code called cricket. But not only that, people who have decided that they want to share their experiences and their aspirations and their hopes for what this what cricket should do, not only for the country, but also for the generations to come, our children. We would like to see our children play this good sporting game called cricket as human beings more than black human beings, colored human beings, Indian human beings, or white human beings. And I would hope that at the end of this process, we will have better solutions that would achieve the objective of making this sporting code a colorblind sporting code, a gender-blind sporting code, a code of people who are selected and people who are playing this sporting code with a realization that they want to promote the hope of the Constitution of this country, which in its preamble starts with the words, we, the people of South Africa, of all races, colors, religions, and all kinds of differentiations which are artificially used to divide the people of this country rather than unite them. So I cannot thank you more for having enriched this process, even if it has presented challenges for us, who at the end of the day will have to go to the board and say, look, this is what we have heard, and our views have been shaped, obviously, by what we have heard. And your contribution will be one of those contributions we will congeal and make known to those who are decision makers about what the future of this game should be. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, gentlemen and lady. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, we will adjourn. I have a commitment in the morning, and to 1 o'clock tomorrow, and we will sit until we come to the end of the program tomorrow. I'm sorry to encroach upon your Fridays, but that is the nature of the beast. We will therefore adjourn till 1 o'clock tomorrow and hopefully be able to be done by the end of the day at about 5 o'clock. We will adjourn.